The first deposit under time deposit is fixed deposit. What is fixed deposit? It is very nicely depicted in the picture in the slide. That's by my side. Now you put money into a bag, a lot of money into a bag, and then tie it up and then lock it for a fixed period. That bag shall not be opened for another 4 years or 5 years. Then that is fixed deposit, because that money is not available to the depositor for a given period. He cannot make use of it. So that is fixed deposit. And what is the beauty of the fixed deposit? In fixed deposit, that the beauty of the fixed deposit is depicted by the second picture in the same slide. In the fixed deposit, interest is paid every quarter. Interest is growing every quarter. That is also very nicely depicted in the second picture. Normally, the interest paid on fixed deposit for 1 year will be above the savings bank. If you look at the savings bank rate of many banks today, it is, especially the public sector banks, it is around 4%. But whereas the fixed deposit percent will be something around, it will be above 4, maybe 5 or 5.5 or 6. Therefore, this is the normal scenario. The fixed deposit for 1 year will be more than the savings bank rate. There may be some exceptions also, which we will see at a later point of time. And another important thing about fixed deposit is, what is the period for which you can accept fixed deposit? The minimum period is fixed by Reserve Bank of India. You can accept a fixed deposit for a period of minimum 7 days. You cannot accept for 3 days or 5 days. The minimum period for which you can accept is 7 days. This is given by Reserve Bank of India. What is the maximum period for which you can accept fixed deposit? There was no maximum. We were not knowing. If you look back into the history of banking, when we were there in 70s, 80s, 90s and all, there was no maximum. We used to accept deposits for 20 years, 25 years. There was one bank which came out with a 20-year deposit scheme. You deposit 1,000 rupees. Today, after 20 years, you will get 23,000 or 24,000 rupees. Something around, that was considered to be a very big attraction. You deposit 3,000 rupees today. After 20 years, you will get 1 lakh. So that was a very big catchy deposit scheme of the bank, and many people deposited. Even I deposited in that bank. But such deposits are not possible, because we were not knowing that the bank was running a very huge interest rate risk at that point of time. So today, the maximum period, what is the maximum period for which you can accept deposit? Reserve Bank of India, even though they are very powerful, they have all the weapons at their control. They can give rather instruction, thou shalt comply with so and so instruction. They can say such a language. But instead, Reserve Bank of India has very gently told bankers, now you decide what is the maximum period for which you can accept fixed deposits. Therefore, all banks have joined together in Indian Bank Association, IBA, and jointly they have decided that they will accept deposits for a period of maximum 10 years. Beyond that, they will not accept. Therefore, today, the minimum period for which you can accept a deposit is, as per RBI guidelines, 7 days, and the maximum period for which you can accept fixed deposit is 10 years. Beyond 10 years, today we don't accept, because banks are running very huge interest rate risk in case they accept deposits for longer periods of like 20 years, etc. The next question is, who decides the interest rate payable on fixed deposit? Till 1991, the interest rate on fixed deposit was decided by Reserve Bank of India. This will be information for most of you youngsters. We used to receive the instruction from Reserve Bank of India, and all banks will pay the same rate of interest. There is no variation whatsoever. There was no competition whatsoever. If you go to Canara Bank for 5 years, if it is 10%, if you come to Indian Overseas Bank, it is the same 10%. If you go to State Bank of India, it is the same 10%. No change whatsoever because the interest rates were decided by Reserve Bank of India. Then Reserve Bank of India deregulated interest rates after 1990s. They allowed the banks to fix the fixed deposit rates themselves in the board of the bank. So today, the interest rates on fixed deposits are fixed by the respective boards of the banks and not by the RBI. This question they may ask you, who is deciding the interest rate of on fixed deposits? Then we can very clearly say it is decided by the respective banks with the approval of their board. And another feature of this fixed deposit interest rate is that the longer the fixed deposit, the higher will be the interest rate. Suppose somebody deposits a fixed deposit for 1 year, the interest rate will be 7%. And the same person deposits for 5 years, it used to be 9%. Something more than 1 year. So, the interest rates will vary according to the period. The more the period, the more will be the interest rate, which was the normal scenario. But this need not be the case also. Sometimes this may not be true also. We shall see that scenario also. Now in this slide, I have given you the fixed deposit rates of 5 years and above from 1975-76 to 2010, something around 35 years. I made this slide because I wanted to know how the fixed deposit interest rates have behaved in the last 25 years. I have lived through this phase. When I joined the bank, the 5-year deposit used to be 10% and it remained more or less the same for another 15-20 years up to 1990-91. If you see the fluctuations that are there in the slide, you will find the fixed 5-year deposit was just vacillating around 10%. Then interest rates started moving up and down with a lot of volatility only after 1990-91. The highest interest rate of 13% was reached in 91-92. Then it fell down and again it reached 13% in 95-96 and 96-97. Today, if you look back, your eyes will pop up in surprise because we were paying 13% for a 5-year deposit. Today, the rate is just half. For a 5-year deposit, you get something around 6% or 6.5%. So from to 95-96, 13%, it started. From then onwards, interest rates started going down in a very steep way. This is when the bankers learnt that if you take fixed deposit at a higher interest rate, you will be running into losses. It is then when banks understood the interest concept called interest rate risk after Basel Committee came into the picture. From 91-92 onwards, from 95-96 onwards, interest rates started coming down. From 13%, it reached a level of 6%. And afterwards, today, it is now hovering around 6 to 8%. Therefore, a banker should realize he cannot play for long term thinking that the interest rates will not fall or rise. So he should limit his years of operation to manageable levels. That is why Reserve Bank has asked all banks, you decide for yourself. What is the maximum period you can accept fixed deposits? And all banks in the joint wisdom have decided that they will accept fixed deposits up to 10 years. This slide shows you the interest rate changes for the maximum period of 5 years from 1975 to from 2010 to 2011. So it shows the interesting history of the behavior of fixed deposit interest rate for 5 years and above. Now here I have given The latest interest rates of ICICI Bank, fixed deposit interest rates of ICICI Bank as on 8/1/2017. If you look at this picture, what does it show? 7 to 14 days interest is 4%. And then senior citizen 4.5%. The Reserve Bank of India has permitted all banks to pay some extra interest as a respect for the senior citizens. This extra interest may be 0.5%, 1%, 0.25%, again decided by the respective banks themselves. Earlier it used to be 1%, which was given by Reserve Bank of India. We did not change it. But now this has been again given to the banks to decide. So some banks pay 0.25, some banks pay 0.5. So it ranges from bank to bank. Here for senior citizen the same rate is 4.5%. Then it goes up as and when the period is increasing. From 4 it becomes 4.25, 5.5 for 1 year. For 290 days to less than 1 year it becomes 6.5%. For 1 year to 389 days it is 6.9%. And for 2 years it is 7%. So from 7 days to 2 years the interest rate is rising. Normally it would have risen further. From 7% it would have gone to 8% or 9%. But today it is not the case. If you look carefully, you will find after 2 years the interest rates starts coming down. For 2 years to 5 years the interest rate is 6.75%, 0.25% less than 7%. And then for 5 years to 10 years the interest rate is 6.5%. So during for the period from 4 days to 2 years the interest rate is rising. After 2 years it has started going down, blowing the theory that more the period, more will be the interest rate. Because what does this indicate to us? Because the bankers think in the abundance of their wisdom that after 2 or 3 years, after 2 years, interest rates may be going further down. So they don't want to pay interest for that period from now onwards. They don't want to commit for a higher rate of interest for that period now itself. That is why they have reduced the interest from 7% to 6.5%. I have put the same rate of interest into a chart which will visually tell us what is the story. Now if you look at the period from 4 days to 2 years, the interest rate is going up. The interest rate depicted in red is for senior citizens, which is 0.5% above, and the interest rate that is depicted in blue is for all. Now after 2 years you can observe that the interest rate has actually come down, blowing the theory that more the period, more should be the interest rate. Here for 2 years it is 7%, for 5 years it is not 7.5% or 8%, but it is 6.5%. Which means the banks are expecting after 2 years the interest rate to further fall down.